Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Amicable Divorce Network podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Ann Moore-Grant, the founder of the Amicable Divorce Network. If you've been joining us for season 2, you know that we are going chapter by chapter through our new book, Divorce Amicably, Your Roadmap to Resolution. We had 40 of our vetted professionals contribute to this book on 80 different topics, and it's designed to help people save their time, money, and sanity through divorce. Today, I am joined by Georgia lawyer Ashley Pepitone, and we're going to talk about chapter 22, how lawyers bill their time. Thank you for joining me, Ashley.
Absolutely.
And so I wrote this chapter, so I've had Ashley join me so we can have a conversation. And generally speaking, there are two major ways that people bill their time when they're an attorney. And it's either by the hour or by a flat fee. I haven't seen a third option really, have you? Like a hybrid or anything?
No, there is some people have tried a subscription model. I haven't ever seen that work in family law. So I don't think most people are doing that. And some clients will ask if we do contingency, which of course we can't do, but
yeah, so subscription would be just like you're thinking if you had a Netflix subscription and you paid a fee every month for this person to be your lawyer, maybe into the future, to get future services. A contingency fee is where the lawyer only gets paid if the client recovers a certain amount of fees, and we see that in personal injury cases. But in family law in Georgia, that's not permitted, so that's not something, I don't know about other states, but that's not something I've ever seen in family law. I do get asked that as well too, like, do you get a percentage of what I get? And I'm like, no, that's not how it works.
Right, I know I'll get money from the house, can I just pay you then?
Yeah, or if I get this, you know,
right.
Yeah, we unfortunately can't work that way and don't work that way. So the first type is what's called a replenish retainer or an evergreen retainer. And I would say this is the most common way that family law attorneys currently bill their time. And this is where you pay a retainer, let's just say it's $5,000, and you put it into an account at your attorney's office and they bill against it. Have you ever worked at a firm? Because Ashley now does mostly flat fee, is that correct?
Only flat fee, except when I do
only flat fee now. Yeah. So, but you used to work at a firm that did replenish retainers.
Correct. Yeah, both of the firms that I worked for before I started my own did some variation of like an evergreen retainer. One that would actually take the bill out of that account, out of their trust account every month and then ask for it to be replenished. And then the other one wouldn't touch it unless the client did not pay their monthly bill for whatever work was done.
Gotcha. So I think you brought up an important point that I should touch on, and that is when you pay a retainer to an attorney. And this would be a huge red flag if this doesn't happen, because this would be something the bar needs to know about. Those funds go into a trust account, which is like a savings account. So if you are paying a replenish retainer, funds get set aside for you. And then the attorney, their staff, they earn that money by hourly working or paying a filing fee or whatever it might be. And then you're asked to put the money back in the account. It's sort of like having auto draft on a bank account. You have to put the money back in for the next month to be billable. And this, I would say, is a huge motivation for attorneys to really run up the billing cases, don't you think?
Yeah, it can be. And I don't like to say that, too much, because I don't want to I don't want to try to badmouth an entire population of
not everybody. Yeah.
Not everybody.
I bill hourly, so for the most part.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. And I did for years and years. And it's hard to know which attorneys are zealously advocating for you and which ones are really just kind of ramping things up, because the more they work, the more drama they create, the more they get paid. But not everybody's motivated in that way. And I think that, especially in the Amicable Divorce Network, those who bill by the hour know that at the end, happy clients are worth more than anything that they could bill any one client, because they're going to say, this lawyer really had my best interest, my family's best interest at heart, and I will refer my friends and family members to them. And the smart lawyers, I think, are not the ones that are out there really trying to nickel and dime everybody.
Yeah.
Biggest
And we
problem
do,
that I-
so I was just going to point out, we do vet all of the members for being engaging in fair billing practices. So when somebody applies for membership, we actually vet them to their colleagues who may have been in court with them, who have seen them present a bill, who may have had the opportunity to see a bill in a case, or they're a mediator and they see their billing, because there are people who run up the bill who are hourly and those who don't. It's just a different billing model. And so we do vet everybody for that particular ideal, because we want to have members who are very respectful of their clients' finances.
Yeah, I was gonna.
Nothing to say. Yeah, I find that I have two types of clients, and I'll explain this to like a new client. I'll say there are people who want to hear from me every Friday that nothing went on in their case, because they want to go into the weekend knowing we got a response to the email or I have heard nothing. And then there's another camp of clients who, if I sent them an email on a Friday that said, I haven't heard any update, they would be like, why are you sending me this email? So I usually like ask, which one are you? And people are pretty mixed. Some people are like, oh, please just give me an update. And some are like, do not contact me if you have nothing to say. Try to sort that out. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. That's definitely something for people to understand. Something I want to make sure that people going through a divorce know is that if they are being charged by their attorney, particularly hourly, they should get a transparent bill on what has happened in their case. I've seen some situations where people just get a request, send in $2,500, and there's no corresponding bill to say like, I spent an hour doing this and paid a filing fee or whatever it is, but they have the right to see what their money was used on, what time, copies, whatever it is, and to ask for that. Yeah. And something else to understand is a lot like when I do my time, I personally am typing it into a computer program and I could do it wrong. So if you see something, we could have two clients with a similar name, or I'm still logged into a different account. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. So if you see a charge and you're like, that just doesn't seem like that happened on my case, you should point it out, because maybe it didn't. Maybe that was, somebody with a very similar name. Or ask, hey, I didn't get a copy of this email that's being referenced here, or, whatever it is. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everybody's human, so definitely, reach out if you have questions. You have every right to know 100% what's going on in your case and how your money's being used. So another thing when people are billing hourly is how an hour is broken down. Most people do the 6 minutes. It's sort of a joke. We live 6 minutes at a time. So that means an hour is broken into 10 segments. So if somebody sends a quick email, hey, is court still on for tomorrow? Or what should I bring to mediation? You respond point one. So you would divide up an hour by 10 segments. But I've seen people start to divide an hour into 4 segments. You haven't seen that as much. Yeah. I think I see it because I'm a mediator. Yeah, I started seeing that, I would say, more than 5 years ago, because I was like, what's the disconnect here? How is this so different? And it was because instead of, for example, for those listening, that quick email, if somebody billed $300 an hour, that would be a $30 email, which, obviously isn't cheap or free. But the same email, if somebody is breaking an hour into 4 segments, would be a $75 email if they're billing 15 minutes at a time, other than 6 minutes. So that's definitely something to know on the front end. Ask in a consult. Yeah. I don't think I've ever been asked that. I don't think a client has ever asked me how I break down. I think once, and it was because they brought my checklist that's on the internet for what to ask in a consult to the consult. Yeah. 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 And you should always feel free to, your attorney should answer those questions for you. Also, if they have an office manager at the office, they could also probably answer the same questions for you as well. But if anything is, burning a hole in you and you don't know the answer, you have every right to ask these questions, and you should. But definitely ask about the billing breakdown if they're doing hourly billing, since we're seeing a little bit more of a transition towards the 15 minutes over the 6 minutes. Have you ever seen people charge what I call an empty retainer, where they pay it to reserve the attorney as their attorney, but they don't get any time in exchange for that? Yeah. I think I see a lot of this because I mediate, and then people are talking about fees. And so I've seen another trend where somebody will say, for me to be your lawyer, it's $2,500. That's just for me to say that I am your lawyer for you to retain me. and then you're going to pay me another $5,000 and I'm going to bill against that. So it's sort of like a hybrid. Yeah. I don't know. I call it an empty retainer. I've never really seen a name for it, but I've seen a couple of people do that. It's like a reservation fee. I don't know. And just so that people know, when you consult with an attorney and they've given you legal advice, they are your attorney. You don't need to give them an extra fee to say that. They're barred from representing the opposing party or anybody against you, basically. So that's something to also know about those types of fees. If you see them, like, ask, oh, what do I get in exchange for that? And if it's like nothing, that's something to question, because that, I would say, is a little abnormal. And then we get into a really interesting area, which is how you bill entirely. I've started transitioning this way, and it is the flat fee. So I'm going to let you take the lead on explaining that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's, I think, what people really need to understand about contested cases as well, that I think clients do not understand. And that is, if anything goes forward on a court calendar, this is 100% out of your control, meaning you, the client, also meaning you, the attorney, Ashley, or me, the attorney, Tracy Ann, because the court will tell you when to show up. And then sometimes you sit there with 30 other cases waiting to see who goes next, and you're paying the lawyer to sit there. People don't really understand the waiting time involved in litigation, and there's a high cost of that, and you're not getting a thing for it other than your attorney had to sit in court for you. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's like a choose your own adventure book. You might have a mediation. You usually do in Georgia. That's usually, something that's going to happen, but you may not have some of these other things until you get there. You don't really know if it's necessary or not. So that's something to look for, I think, in a flat fee, especially in a contested case, is to know what is included and what isn't. And you have a menu of list of items in your retainer, and that would be something I would say people should look for to understand really fully what's going on. And again, feel free to ask questions. I have found people emotionally sort of veer one way or another, but a lot of times with the flat fee, when I'm doing that and I explain it to the client, they're like, so I never get a bill? I think that could be like really almost, I don't want to say like triggering, like they can't handle it, but to get that bill every month, that you have to look for and stuff can be pretty stressful, the unknown. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We're putting it on a credit card. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say, just controlling the unknown during this period of time, I think, is very desirable to people. Mm-hmm. 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 Right. I mean, there's no financial motivation on your part to like tank a mediation or a settlement. You would be fully aligned with, this is the right course because that makes sense. And if it's a different course, that's how it's going to be. So there's lots of pros and cons of each. This is a whole chapter in the book. So if you're looking at hiring a divorce attorney, there's also a checklist for meeting with one. Look at this and be familiar with this before you go meet with somebody, so you know what questions you should ask so that you are fully informed. I think that also, just because of the nature of divorce, it's very emotional. Sometimes something has happened and somebody's, going to a divorce attorney very quickly. They aren't educating themselves beforehand about what they should ask, and they don't sometimes fully understand what has happened, what they've signed. Yeah. Yeah. And I always tell people, I think that flat fees in family law are very new. Ashley here is on the absolute cutting edge doing this type of thing. So if you do reach out to an attorney and ask if they do flat fees and they don't, that isn't a red flag. I would say it's not the trend. It's trending up, but isn't incredibly common. It's certainly a conversation you can have with them, but don't be turned off if that's something that they just don't do. Many attorneys just aren't comfortable with doing that. And if you find somebody like Ashley who does flat fees, there's also some, questions in here to ask and make sure that you know everything that's going on. Ashley, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. If people are listening and they want to reach out to you and are interested in flat fees, how can they reach you? I think we know that part. Yeah. We're from the 90s, guys. And you can also find her on the Amicable Divorce Network website. She's a board member and can be found there, as well as our membership directory under Georgia Attorneys, and on divorceamicably.com, also under Georgia Attorneys. Ashley, thank you very much.